You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson, and you can find me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch this podcast on wherever you listen to podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. If you are a first-time listener, you want to know how this channel works, we bring you episodes Monday through Friday, as well as 60-second YouTube shorts throughout the week. I know I've not been great on those over the last couple weekends. Been very, very busy. Going to be the same thing this weekend. The good news is we have the Royals postcast that happens after each and every Royals game. That continues into the weekend, and it's hosted by Chance Lebo, who'll give you a 15-minute live reaction after each of those games. So that'll begin tomorrow, right after the conclusion of the Royals and the Rays. Before we get started, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. And with FanDuel, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. So get started today with FanDuel. Well, I know what you're thinking. We still are doing this podcast through Zoom. I actually had planned on recording this morning and posting before 12:30 because I know I've been promising that to a lot of people. We're able to do it Monday through Thursday yesterday. Didn't get it done on Friday. I actually recorded an entire episode this morning around 8 a.m., and then when I went back and tried to edit it, it was just sloppy and all over the place because of the bad connection. So, plan on getting some people out here to work on whatever's going wrong to diagnose the problem so that we can get back to StreamYard and using that in a timely manner. But to come up with, or to make up for some of the missed episodes on StreamYard, we'll just continue to do them on Zoom. Now, if you listened to the Royals postcast yesterday, you would have gotten my thoughts on the Royals series finale with the Padres and them blowing the 2-0 lead and Matt Quatraro pulling Seth Lugo a little bit early. He goes to Angel Serpa and then to Lucas Erceg, Daniel Lynch, and then John Schreiber. But in the end, it was Jose Iglesias of the Padres driving in all 3 runs. That led to a series win for San Diego and a sour end to the road trip for the Royals, although it was a great road trip at 4-2. And even though it was that sour end and it made you just feel so frustrated knowing that Monday was going to be another off day, a 4-2 road trip against 2 playoff teams is always going to be seen in a positive way at the end of the season, right? It's not about how you got the 4-2 when you look back in September. It's just that you got the 4-2 record on a very tough road trip. And they honestly had to have a winning road trip with what they have ahead this week, which is the Tampa Bay Rays, the hottest team in the American League, and then we know all about the Dodgers coming into Kansas City this weekend. There are some tough opponents on deck too. That goes beyond this week with just the Rays and the Dodgers. So to kick things off on this rough stretch with a 4-2 road trip, it will always be seen as a good thing. I understand yesterday was frustrating. Saturday was as well. But since they swept Texas, you kind of went in that San Diego series just saying at least take one. Now, when you take game 1 and you have a 4-0 road trip with 2 to go, you want to get greedy and say, well, give us the final 2 or at least give us one more so we can have back-to-back series wins. Didn't work out that way. But this first segment, because we'll be diving into the homestand and what lies ahead for the Royals in the final segment, and we'll talk about a prospect getting the bump to Triple-A in the second segment of today's show. Let's go over the bullpen usage for Matt Quatraro. This is not the first time that we have done a segment like this. And since the postcast is only 15 minutes, it's live. I'm trying to read the comments. I'm not always going to be as well prepared, I guess I should say, for a live reaction. Because in the live reaction, you're coming up with it on the fly. The benefit of doing this podcast is it's pre-recorded. And there's been numerous times where I've had to go back, cut out, parts where I didn't feel that I got my point across correctly. So with this segment, I feel I've had enough time to prepare and give my honest opinions on yesterday. So to go into that 7th inning, yes, Seth Lugo was cruising. No doubt in my mind that Seth Lugo was cruising, and if you kept him out there to face Luis Arraez and Gavin Sheets, he very well could have gotten those outs and gotten through 7 shutout innings, maybe in less than 110 pitches, maybe even less than 100 pitches. But with the Royals offense only putting up 2 runs, it forced Matt Quatraro and that coaching staff to make a decision. Do we gamble and leave Seth Lugo out there with a tying run at the plate and risk burning him where he's out there and he's just wearing it and Arise singles and then Gavin Sheets doubles and now you're putting on Hel Serpa in a tougher situation or Lucas Ursig in a tougher situation? Or do you try to play it more of a conservative approach and say, let's get a fresh arm in there and have the lefty-lefty matchup against Arise and then against Gavin Sheets? Now, Serpa did his job to the first hitter. He gets the ground ball. You got 2 outs, runner at third. That runner at third, even though it'll cut the lead in half, it's not as important as the runner at the plate. And that's why what I imagine Brian Sweeney told Serpa when he went out to the mound. But he walked him on 4 pitches. And now he's got to face the right-handed hitter. And since you got to face 3 hitters, he has to go after Bogarts. And he did get ahead 0-1, but then threw 4 straight balls. So now you got the bases loaded. Mike Schilt comes out and he pinch hits Jake Cronenworth for Jose Iglesias. And as I said in the postcast, I felt that was a bailout for the Royals. I didn't think Serpa was going to find the zone at all to Cronenworth, or worse, he was going to throw a pitch right down the middle and Cronenworth was going to crush into the gap. And now you're down 3-2. So going to Iglesias, it allowed Matt Quatraro to go to the bullpen and turn to Lucas Ursig, and I will take that matchup 9 out of 10 times. It just so happens that on an 0-2 pitch, Ursig left it middle, and Iglesias dumped it into right field. So the thought process on yesterday's game is the thought process that we've seen so many times from Matt Quatraro. And if I'm being quite honest with you, I don't see that changing. Like, I don't see a similar situation occurring and you just go, well, it didn't work out last time, therefore I'm going to leave him out there to try to get a different result this time. What changes that is if the Royals had one more run. If it was 3-0 and not 2-0. Why? Because Seth Lugo would have been able to face Luis Arise with the tying run still on deck. Worst case scenario, he hits a 2-run home run and you're still up by 1 and you can go to the bullpen then. But the fact it was 2-0, and when Noah Cameron left the game, I think it was 3-0 as well. So I was far more against that move than maybe yesterday's move. Seth Lugo is now on his 5th start after the injured list. Not saying that he was unhealthy or anything like that, but Angel Serpa had been their best left-handed reliever for the better part of a month and a half. And you were getting great outings from him. He's also a ground ball pitcher, the 2nd highest ground ball rate among relievers in baseball. So you know he's going to be able to keep it in the yard. So the Padres are going to have to string together some hits to tie up that game. But he lost all of his command. And that's something that can't happen in that spot. Lucas Ursig, as good as he's been as a Royal, he's had some rough outings and certainly had his worst series as a Royals member. Wasn't great on Friday, wasn't great yesterday. That's got to change, but I'm still not looking at this bullpen and saying, well, they got issues. This bullpen still has a top 5 save rate in all of baseball. They've got the league leader in saves. I know I said lead leaguer, which still is a baseball phrase, but I said it on Friday night and people didn't understand it. It's the same concept here. Estevez has been great. Ursig, aside from a few outings since returning from the injured list, he's been fine. Or he's been above average before the injured list, excuse me. Serpa has been very good over a month and a half. Cruz has been great. Daniel Lynch has been good. Prior to Saturday, Taylor Clark had done enough, but John Schreiber, kind of in that same conversation of like done enough, but not flawless. The bullpen's much better than it was last year is what I'm getting at. So in a spot like that, you might rely on your bullpen to get you some outs. If this was the bullpen of last year, I think I'd be a little bit more fired up about it. If it was, lefties coming up, and I'm trying to think before Bubic who the lefties would have even been last year, because Daniel Lynch wasn't a constant out there in the bullpen. It really was Serpa. And Serpa last year at this point was not pitching well. So let's say it was like Chris Stratton or John Schreiber you turned to last year. You probably don't feel as good about that move. But Serpa had been really good for a month and a half. And I know there's going to be people, as they clearly expressed yesterday, well, he cares too much about matchups. Well, that's a part of the game. Like, that's just who a lot of managers are. They play the matchups. And as we saw with the Royals last year, not that they're not trying to put effort into winning these games, because they are vitally important. They got to play well over the next handful of weeks and into the All-Star break so that they can be competitive at the deadline. But you look to last year, And Lugo and Walker and Reagans threw a lot of innings. And that was a big reason as to why they made it to the postseason. You have Bobby Witt Jr. playing like an MVP candidate, but the rotation is what got them into the playoffs. And Lugo threw 206 innings. Walker threw a lot of innings. Reagans threw a lot of innings. And by the postseason, some of those guys were on fumes. And I do wonder, with the injuries they've had in the rotation, if you might err on the side of caution a little bit more in relying on your bullpen more in the first half of the season. If we get to this point again in the second half and it's against Cleveland or Minnesota and Lugo's in the exact same spot, maybe it is different. I've also watched Matt Quatraro and covered Matt Quatraro manage the Royals for 3 years now. It's been pretty consistent with how he handles his starters. So I just wasn't that surprised or blindsided yesterday by that decision to pull Lugo. It didn't work out. That happens, and I'll tell you this right now. There's going to come another point in the season where it happens again. But in moves like that, I will blame the manager. You're not blameless in this. Don't get me wrong or don't get my words twisted. But I'm also more so about the execution there. Angel Serpa needed to do his job. Lucas Erceg can't leave an 0-2 pitch right down the middle. You have to be better in those spots, and we're probably talking about a series win and a 5-1 road trip if they do get that done. Let's take our first break of the show. When we come back, some good news today came from Double-A Northwest Arkansas as Carter Jensen got the promotion to Triple-A Omaha. We'll give you our thoughts next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. Catch us on wherever you listen to your podcast. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Odyssey, and YouTube. Just be sure to hit the follow button and subscribe. Before we move any further, want to tell you about Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts, where each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep you feeling fuller longer. So get snackin and get crackin with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more today. And as I said, I've been trying to record earlier in the day, and sometimes I'm going straight from recording to work, and I want to have that snack to get me from breakfast to lunch. Always grab a bag of Wonderful Pistachios. They're very tasty. They keep you fuller, as I said. And if you're like me, who's always on the go, can't recommend them enough. They're a very good snack and also a healthy snack that make you feel pretty good to get you to lunchtime. Well, the news today, as it broke while I was at work, and I will say this, that for tomorrow, I would count on us being on Zoom, just because I'm waiting for people to come fix the connection here. But when I was at where I work, I was able to get the news a little bit early that Carter Jensen was getting called up to Triple-A, and he's absolutely earned it. And going into spring training, he was one of my favorite guys to talk to. That's been the case now for the last 2 years. And I'm very high on Carter Jensen in a biased way because he's a local kid, and he's one of those hitters that has just constantly gotten better every single year he's been in the system. And you almost view him as the catcher of the future. And maybe if Blake Mitchell was healthy, or Ramon Ramirez was a little bit older and right around where Carter Jensen was playing at, then I would call those guys the catcher of the future. But as for this year, I've got no reason to believe it's anybody else other than Carter Jensen. The bat has really come along, and that was one of the impressive parts when he was about 18 or 19. His approach was very mature, but the numbers weren't there just yet. Like, he was hitting 180 to 190, but getting on base at a 350 clip. He was mature, he didn't chase a lot, but he did have a high strikeout rate, and he just wasn't having a lot of hits fall in. He's a big kid, too. I mean, he's not as big as Salvi, but he's pretty big in stature, and that's where that power comes from. And behind the plate, I believe he's done a really good job this year. And when they drafted Blake Mitchell, I thought to myself, well, Mitchell was known for his defensive abilities behind the plate. He's got a cannon for an arm. The LSU coach was so high on him because they were recruiting him and thought he might be one of the better catchers that they've ever had. But Blake Mitchell, still had to be, developed from the offensive side of things. Same thing with Carter Jensen. He was a high school bat that, had a lot of eyeballs on him, but that was a part of his game that they had to develop. And when you see that happen at each and every level, you really start rooting for him. I thought the same thing with Vinny Pasquantino, though he was a first baseman. Later round pick, really hit well at high A. He gets bumped to double A, continues to improve. Same thing in triple A, and same thing at the big league level. Those guys are so easy to root for, and it's not always going to be as easy as a trip to the big leagues like Jack Caglione's had. A little bit of time in double A, barely any time in triple A. Now you're in the big leagues. I mean, Carter Jensen turns 22 next week. So he's still incredibly young. And I've been asked a lot about the timeline, when they're going to see this guy in Kansas City. I feel it's pretty fair to say between April and June of next year. And a lot of it is going to come down to, will they pick up that option for Salvador Perez? And I know he's been great of late, but at some point in time, they're going to need to realize that the answer behind the plate has to be one of these guys in the minor league level. No, it's either Carter Jensen, Blake Mitchell, or Ramon Ramirez. And going into this trade deadline, I feel you kind of have to make your pick already, because there's going to be teams calling about Blake Mitchell and Ramon Ramirez and Carter Jensen. And with Jensen getting the promotion to AAA, I'm not saying he's completely off the table, but that to me is signaling that they want him to stay in the organization. They want to challenge him in AAA and see where he's at. And you now give him a full season to just work there in AAA the rest of this year and maybe a chunk of next year, because he's still so incredibly young, and the Royals do have a catcher right now. They've got two catchers. And whenever he gets called up, I do believe that it's going to be as an everyday player. He's not getting called up to play Freddie Fermin's role. Like, whenever he gets the call, it will be to take over the catching responsibilities for the Royals. And the numbers in AA were very impressive. The walk rate's not really where it was in high A or AA last year, but he's cut down on the swing and miss a ton. He's still walking around an 8 to 9% clip, but he was hitting 294 in AA. He was scorching the ball all of June. He was doing the same thing in May. And in spring training, I was just so impressed with the overall makeup of the guy. And last year he was in, big league camp and hit a couple of moon balls as well down there in Arizona. One of them was on top of the training facility. It was like 430 or 440. He's got tremendous power and such a smooth swing for a left-handed catcher. And catcher is a tough spot to develop. We've seen so many teams at the major league level just kind of, not really care who's behind the plate. If they've got good defense, we'll take whatever we can get from them offensively. You don't have to look much further than the team the Royals just played. I mean, Martin Maldonado, 6 years after being in Kansas City, where he wasn't even picked up until spring training, he's still behind the plate for the Padres because of what he does offensively. Now, there are teams out there that really value the catching position, and they want to see both great defense and great offensive abilities. And I think Carter Jensen can give the Royals that. It's going to take some time. He's still incredibly young, and with them moving Jack Caglione rather quickly through the system, I feel you can take your time with Carter Jensen. You've got Salvador Perez behind the plate. You've got Freddie Fermin. Jack Caglione was moved rather quickly because you had an opening out there in right field. Yes, you could move Carter Jensen around, but I'm also not for just constantly moving pieces just to put their bat in there. You still want to have good defense out there, and Jack Caglione has progressed as a right fielder, but if Carter Jensen's not behind the plate, where do you put him? We're going to move a catcher to left field again, and now you've got a first baseman in right field and the catcher in left field. You want to move him to third base? No, Michael Garcia's there. You're going to move him to first base? Well, Vinny Pasquantino's there. So I feel they can take their time with him, keep him behind the plate, see where he's at the end of the year. If he's hitting 280 to 300, well, have a good offseason, have a good spring training, have a great April and May in Omaha to begin next year, and let's see where they're at in June with their catcher's position and where Carter Jensen may be at. But big credit goes to him. He has just improved every single year. I'm absolutely rooting for him. I know that the Royals will probably have to look into trading one of those three catchers if they're in it at the deadline and if they want a significant bat. But the biased part of me says I hope it's not Carter Jensen, because I'm really starting to believe that he can be the catcher of the future for this team. Okay, we're going to take our final break of the show. When we come back, let's dive into this homestand, who the Royals will be facing in terms of the pitching matchups, and where these teams rank offensively, because I'm starting to see a trend with how the Royals fare against teams that don't hit as well and that do hit as well, but even might have a bad pitching staff. We'll tell you about it next on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. Check out our channel every single day for daily content. You can follow my podcast Monday through Friday, and we also have the Royals Postcast, which is hosted by Chance Lebo. Now, before we go any further, have a title sponsor that we want to tell you about in FanDuel. We know that summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You've already followed the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while you're with your friends and getting sunburned at the beach. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first bet wins. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. For my pick, since the NBA Finals just wrapped up and I can't give you any more NBA picks until next season, let's go to Major League Baseball tonight. I'll take the over on strikeout totals for Brian Wu against the Minnesota Twins, and I will take the over on innings pitched for Walker Buehler going up against the Angels tonight in Anaheim. Big homestand for the Royals. They'll be taking on the Tampa Bay Rays tomorrow, and it has just been a red-hot Rays team over the last month to month and a half, it feels like. Want to say the stat that I saw was they are 22-8 over their last 30 games. Their offense is just playing at a ridiculous level. And I know that playing in a spring training ballpark, a minor league ballpark, it's going to inflate some of those numbers. But I don't believe that's just a ballpark thing for the Rays. They've got a ton of hitters in that lineup, and they've got a few guys that very well may start for the American League All-Star team coming up in about a month or so. I mean, the way Junior Caminero has played has been jaw-dropping. I mean, such a young and prolific talent, just 21 years old. We know all about his talent when the Royals faced the Rays back at George M. Steinbrenner Field. I want to say it was at the end of April or maybe it May at some point. Sometimes these series just blend together a little bit, but he's been ridiculous, over the last month, and he's been a big reason as to why the Rays have been winning so many games. Yandy Diaz, who has just stupid numbers against Chris Bubic for tomorrow, he's OPSing at 2.633 against Bubic in 5 career at-bats. So he's 4 for 5 and has done just significant damage against Chris Bubic in his career. Brandon Lau has been great for them. They also just called up Chandler Simpson, who the Royals saw when they last played on the road. So you got the speedster coming back there. You also have a super underrated player. Maybe if you're a big-time baseball fan, you wouldn't call him super underrated, but a lot of Rays players are. Jonathan Aranda will probably be starting at first base if, Vladdy Jr. gets beat out there, but he's hitting 325 and OPSing at 897 and 243 at-bats. Young, controllable pieces, hit the ball incredibly hard, and there's not a lot of let-up in that lineup. The Royals exploited them a little bit back when they faced off on the road, but that was a Rays team that was playing much differently than they are right now. They got a ton of confidence. That offense is thriving, and Chris Bubic, Michael Wacha, and Michael Lorenzen are going to have their work cut out for them in this one. Because the Rays at 43-35 have I believe, 5.5 game lead over the Royals in the wild card race. Kansas City's 2 games back of Seattle at this point in time. Seattle and Cleveland, I should say. Tampa Bay is the number 1 wild card team, and they're 3 games up. So actually, just 5 games back, I believe it is. So yeah, the Royals trail the Rays by 5 games. This is your chance to gain a little bit of ground. I mean, if you can take 2 of 3, pick up a game on them, you would have gone 5-1 against Tampa in the season series. And anytime you can stack up those series wins against the teams ahead of you, that's going to be very important when you look back at the end of the year in September. It's not to say that the series against the Dodgers at the end of this week is not important, because it is. But if you go out there and play well against Tampa Bay, it allows you some cushion against the Dodgers. And so I will say this. I feel that this series against Tampa Bay is really going to dictate how the rest of the week goes. I understand that 2 games may dictate it. Like if they win the first 2 games, I feel that they can absolutely have a 500 homestand. And that's what I feel it's going to take to be called a successful homestand. You've got 2 incredibly talented teams that you are facing. And if you had the 4-2 road trip, you pair that nicely with a 3-3 homestand against the Rangers, Padres, Rays, and Dodgers, you would have gone 7-5. And though you'd still be 2 games under 500, those are some really tough teams out of the way. You're not facing the Rays again. You're not facing the Dodgers again. You then would have to take on Seattle, who's just ahead of you in the wild card race. And this is, right, the first time the Royals and Mariners will be playing this year. I don't believe they've played just yet. Like I said, all these series like to blend together for me. But the Mariners are just 39-37, and that's who's on deck, or in the hole, I should say, for the Royals and their schedule. You go to Arizona after that, and then you come back home to wrap up the first half with the Pirates at home and then the New York Mets. Only one of those teams, the rest of the way, is under 500 as of right now. Arizona's 1 game over 500, but even if they are under 500 when the Royals face them, that's a team that's really not a sub 500 team. There's a lot of talent in that lineup. They just can't pitch worth a darn. Tampa Bay, I will say this, with the pitching matchups that they have, Taj Bradley has one of the highest qualified ERAs, out there. 4.95 ERA amongst starters. I believe that's top 5 highest ERA in the American League. And Chris Bubich going for the Royals. Then you've got Drew Rasmussen, who the Royals saw. The Royals will see the same 3 starters that they saw at George M. Steinbrenner Field in this series at Kauffman Stadium. Rasmussen's been great, 2.61 ERA, but the Royals did enough against him last time out. And they hammered Shane Baz, who's got a 4.79 ERA this year. So there's some favorable matchups for the Royals against Tampa. And then against the Dodgers, they're going to have Seth Lugo going, or actually it'll be Noah Cameron game 1, Seth Lugo game 2, and Chris Bubich game 3 for the Dodgers. So those are the matchups that we will be seeing all week long. I'm not sure yet who the Dodgers will be throwing. I'm not sure they've announced it, but I'll try to keep you as posted as best as I can. As for the offensive numbers, here's why it's important to take care of business against Tampa Bay, because these are 2 teams that are top 5 in hitting. The Dodgers have the number 1 batting average in all of baseball at 264. The Rays are at 256, which is tied for 5th in all of baseball. OPS, Dodgers are number 1. Tampa Bay is 11th. And we look at some of these teams that are high in that category. The Yankees, they are number 2 on this list. The Royals didn't win 1 game against them this year. You look at Detroit, a team that has given the Royals problems so far. They're 6th in that department. Boston is a team that took 2 of 3 from the Royals. They're 7th in that department. The Athletics, 10th offensively. They swept the Royals in 3 games last week. And then you look at some of these teams that struggle on the offensive side of things. The Royals swept the Rangers. They're 28th in OPS. The Royals have a winning record against the White Sox. They're dead last. The Royals took 2 of 3 out of the Giants. They're 24th. The Royals did only take 1 of 3 from the Padres, but were competitive in all 3. The Padres were 22nd in OPS. The Royals also have the winning, or a season series win against the Orioles. The Orioles are 21st in that department. So when they face those teams that aren't as great offensively, it doesn't really matter where those teams' pitching staffs are. The Royals have been very competitive against them. When they face teams that are elite offensively, top 10 in the league, they have not fared well. So it's going to be a huge test for them as they get the Rays and the Dodgers coming up beginning tomorrow night. It'll be Chris Bubich on the bump going up against Taj Bradley. What do you think the Royals need to do on this homestand for you to consider it a success? Let us know in the YouTube comments below. But that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen today. For your second, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale and find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I'm hoping that I can get the episode out by 12:30 tomorrow. I promise I'm trying to keep that guarantee moving forward. This connection issue has just been a problem, though, for about the last 2 to 3 weeks, as you know. If we get them fixed, maybe it'll be on StreamYard tomorrow morning, but I'm really going to try to record on Zoom, too, tomorrow morning, so I don't have to record twice in one day. But until tomorrow, you take it easy, Kansas City.